We have heard about BBR's origin story, talked a lot about where you guys have come from. Today, we're going to be focused on the future. You are at $32 billion in assets under management. And I think the question is, how do you scale from here? How do you lead your own teams and kind of lead in the industry? And then how do you think about what's next? How do you stand out in a very fast changing world? So I thought maybe we just kind of start with what BBR is, and Evan and Brett, I'd love to start with you on this.
The devil's in the detail. Taking care of people's wealth and providing safety and peace of mind is really important. And I think that's in the end how we'll all be judged. How you do it and who you do it with is really the differentiator.
How do you explain you're at a conference, you're talking to potential clients, you're competing with someone. What's the
Yeah.
elevator way you describe BBR?
Yeah, I mean, the way we describe it is that wealthy families have very complex needs. And at the core is that they need a sophisticated, independent solution to managing their wealth. Um, Even for our clients who, like many recently, are financially oriented, right? They come from Wall Street.
Yeah.
They've got a deep level of expertise around their area, their work, but they don't have like all the answers in terms of how you actually take a concentrated bit of wealth and turn it into a diversified, well-constructed wealth designed for future generations. We do that, right? We help them through that. And that process is vital. Every client has a different process, right? You've got families have totally different goals and needs. I'd say currently where we are, $32 billion, the set of needs is much wider than where it was when we first started. And we've developed a firm along those sets of needs. So we have 12 different wealth management practices that complement what we do on the investment side, things that are vital to families' preservation of their wealth, everything from trust and estate, accounting, insurance, aviation, cross-border planning. That deep expertise across all areas of the firm are now what we're really offering clients. And it's the whole package that gives them that peace of mind.
Yeah, and Brett, do you feel when you hear that anything that you would say, like, do you describe it differently? And then also, can you talk a little bit about this? You listed a number of these 12 areas. Like, is
Mhm.
that are those all things that have come in the last few years, or from the beginning were you saying like these are our 12?
Sure. I would say, well, first of all, I would describe it very similarly. I think we have a phrase at the firm, which is we want to embrace complexity, right? If you think about a typical asset management business, it's a mutual fund. Everybody gets the same thing. Our business is the polar
Hmm.
opposite of that. And these families have the nature of being wealthy leads to complexity, whether it's in the investments in those 12 different areas that Evan alluded to. And at the same time, what we want for those families is to simplify that complexity for them. That's the base of the service we're providing. So I think we would describe it similarly. In terms of those areas, they don't ever drop off, but they do get added. I mean,
Yeah.
things like income tax and trust and estate tax like have always been around. Um, Things that have evolved and we've added over time are like next generation education. I mean, maybe that should have been there day one, but it was something that clearly became a bigger need as we've had more complicated and global families. The cross borders, come in, and there's some things that are more ad hoc, like an art advisory or something along that. But the core of what we do has not changed at all.
How do you decide when to add a new area?
It's bottoms up. It
Hmm.
comes from client demand. And bottom up in the sense that when you start hearing the same thing from other families, although we absolutely will do ad hoc projects for
Hmm.
clients, right? When clients ask us for help, we say yes, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
We show up for them. But sometimes that's just for that client and doesn't have any relevance across all the other 180 plus families. But oftentimes it does. And when it does, that means we need to develop an internal resource to be able to handle that across all those family
Right.
groups. And clearly, like in the current market, like there is more demand than we've ever had for second passports. And so we've now developed a practice area that actually, as part of cross border, that really dives into that area.
Got it.
So it's a reflection of what's going on in the world. It's not just bottoms up from the client.
I'd also say it's our job to be on top of innovations that happen in the marketplace, whether they be investing or in other services. So whether it's evolutions in what can happen in private placement life insurance, I mean, I know that's like down a rabbit hole, or tax strategies in investing where you are generating ordinary losses and it just without going into too much detail, what we're able to find in the marketplace gets more and more sophisticated. It's our job to stay on top of, if not ahead of all those. And those become recurring themes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love this idea of you can focus on the complexity because your clients need it and they don't have to. They don't know about a lot of these things. They just know the problems that they're facing. So
They need curators,
yeah,
right? We what we're able to do is curate the opportunities that they have available
Right.
to them. And I think the complexity that they face isn't just on how do you grow these assets responsibly. It's also, wealth amplifies other complexities that we all face as humans, interpersonal complexities within families, psychological, sometimes spiritual complexities. We are not therapists and we're not priests or rabbis, but we are there to help bring that technical rigor and that depth with an interpersonal skill that I think is really what makes us able to deliver these services and all of that knowledge to families.
And that complexity also changes over time, right?
Yeah.
So there's a point in time complexity that's usually the reason that a client might hire us, but 5 years later, 10 years later, there's completely different
Right.
complexities. And I think that that's the custom aspect of what we do for families is provide peace of mind over the course of time as those things change and evolve and families grow up and start having grandkids and kids and things like that. Ultimately, they don't know what the complexities are going to be. We don't know what they're going to be, but we're there to figure them out as they come.
would you say that idea of introducing or tackling complexities over time, is that what makes you stand out? Or are there other things when you are competing for, people who have had wealth for a long time, maybe just came into wealth? What are the areas that you are consistently winning on, and how have you learned how to change your message over time?
Yeah, I think our independence and our overall strategy is a differentiator. Particularly today, our industry is changing very fast. And we have built our entire organizational mission and strategy to mirror the needs of clients that are multi-generational, whose complexities are going to evolve over time. And so in order to do that, we have built a financial and organizational model that is going to stand the test of time on its own. We want to be here for those families, 20, 30, 50 years down the road. And in order to do that, I mean, it impacts how we do everything.
Yeah.
How we recruit a team, how we incent that team, how we align all of our interests alongside our families.
And I think that the sort of, I think where you're going with the question is it's not easy to say we're really good at complexity and what does
Yeah.
that mean,
Right.
right? So
That doesn't translate well in a.
I would assume
Yeah,
that if I see the door and you're like,
yeah.
we're going to make it really complex, I'm like, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
But and I think that what that comes down to is early on in the process being really good listeners, right? So I think there are many people in our seats that are presenting, right, and then projecting
Yeah.
what they think a family should do without listening to what they need. What are the complexities? What are the problems? What are the things that they're worried about or excited about? And then I think what we do a very good job of is taking that and turning it around into something that is exactly what the client's looking for.
You are independent in a world that has increasingly been rolled up. How do you think about the independence? What are the ways that you talk about it with clients, potential customers, potential clients? And are there ever times where you're like, oh, shoot, we should really, it'd be so much easier if we were just, part of something massive. Like, how do you think about independence?
I mean, the basic answer is it's about ownership, right? And it's about where that ownership evolves to over time. And so from our perspective, we are overwhelmingly owned by the active partners of the firm. We've had now multiple partners retire. That will continue to happen into the future. And our ability to make new partners, have the existing partners get more equity, have a system in place where that gets recycled,
Yeah.
and that there doesn't need to be some magical transaction to deal with succession planning or ownership transition, that's been solved.
Okay.
So, but that's sort of the technical answer. The other answer, I mean, it's attractive to think about not being independent for lots of reasons. These are businesses that are really attractive to acquirers today at prices that I think are kind of insane.
Silly.
As an investor, I should be thinking about selling, but there's two key things that prevent me. It's the wrong thing for our firm. It's the right part of our culture for people to know they can become a partner and they know what the firm's going to look like in the future. And that's part of the culture in terms of people wanting to stay here, wanting to succeed and be part of the firm. And second, it makes me feel better because it's the right thing for our clients. They don't have to worry who's going to take care of their kids, 25 years from now.
Right.
The firm's going to be here and it's got a structure that has already stood the test of time, has already been tested, and is just going to continue on that trajectory in a way that I've got a lot of confidence in. And that makes me feel better delivering that to the clients.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important that Brett and Evan started thinking about that early in before 2010, but that's when it really started to evolve for us. And I talk to peers all the time that are sort of stuck in a position with two owners of a business. They don't really have a way to transition equity efficiently to other key people at the firm, and they're stuck. And the only solution for them is doing a transaction externally. And I think that these guys got ahead of it early and have broadened the ownership such that aligns very much with the culture, right? We have a lot of owners of the business in the office right now, and everybody feels that, and that you can't replicate that, and you can't all of a sudden do that once you've been successful. So thinking about that early, I think, is really the key to this.
But is it a way that you talk to clients also? Like, even I understand internally how this helps you, and this is like part of the culture. I wonder, when you are out talking to clients, is this something you bring up, or is it just they don't need to know this?
It absolutely allows us to make long-term decisions. Because we own the majority of the firm, we are able to make decisions that center the needs of our clients over the long term, not over the short term, and center the needs of our employees. And so we do things differently than if we had to, think about selling the business to another owner in multiple years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about the investment side of what we do, we take an endowment-like approach. It's a very long-term orientation. If you can't see that through, right, it's not going to work. If you think about the trust estate and tax planning and all of the wealth management areas that we work on, they have a very long-term nature in terms of the way we're thinking. We're talking about unborn grandchildren, right? If we're not around to help with those things, then the planning won't be as effective as it was intended to be. So the approach aligns very much with the ownership structure, and our intent again is to be here, celebrating 50 years in 25 more years.
Yeah.
In a year like 2022, we're not talking about reducing our staff so that we can hit short-term financial goals. What we're doing is making sure that our staff is well supported to be actually meeting the increased needs of clients during a time of a lot of market volatility.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's so little that we do in life that you think about generationally.
Yeah.
Like, as you were describing, I was like, all right, that's a crazy idea. That you guys are great to work with for my generation and for my grandkids.
Yeah.
That is a tough buying decision or decision on who to invest with.
In many cases, that is the key decision making.
Really?
We can show performance charts, we can show results, we can show all the different wealth management practice areas, but in the end, they are making a subjective decision of whether this is the right firm for their future, for their family, for their future generations. And the ownership becomes a vital part of it, if not the part of it. But I will say one to Todd's point where, I think that is good business advice, which is thinking early about transitions, right? Brett and I were in our 30s when we were thinking about next generation, but that can't happen unless you've got talent to be able to actually have someone to transition to. And so Todd and Steph being here essentially since day one and working side by side in the trenches for almost a decade gave Brett and I a lot more confidence that it wasn't just transitional equity into a vast ether, but to Todd and Steph, and now many, many other partners who are equally talented. That gives you confidence and gives prospective clients confidence that the multi-generational transfer will happen to people who are as good, if not better, than the ones who they originally worked with back in the 2000s.
We're on the 25th birthday of BBR. If you were thinking out 10 years from now, we are gathering together for the 35th. What would we be talking about? And I would love to just kind of run through maybe talent, culture, like how do you think about the next 10 years?
Yeah, I actually think that what we're going to be doing for clients is we're going to be doing it differently, but it's going to be the same thing that we're doing today that we were doing 25 years ago. We've touched on all of that. But I think in order to do that well, we're thinking every day about succession and what that talent will look like over the next 15 to 20 years, right? And so I think key to that are some of the things that we've already talked about, but really making sure that there are a broad base of owners who are ready and capable to take on more as our clients' needs evolve over time. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how we all interact as a partnership and how we nurture the next generation. We have a great and incredibly talented group of young partners and directors who are in the trenches all day long with clients and managers and making things happen behind the scenes at BBR for our clients that I think we'll be spending time talking about in 10 years.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and other examples?
You
of
might be talking to other people in 10 years.
Perfect. The
Yeah.
table's just going to keep growing.
Keep growing. Exactly.
What about, I mean, there's talent. Are you guys thinking about investing in technology to help you through all of this? How do you think about making sure you're supporting the firm there?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important and becoming even more important over time to invest in tech. That was something that was a challenge as a brand new firm, right, to invest heavily on the technology side, and the tech wasn't really there at that time. We're in the process of going through a big investment in technology infrastructure, data, how we host our data. To set ourselves up to be able to be more efficient, more effective going forward. And why does that matter? Ultimately, again, we talked earlier about how customized our approach is. Clients like to see things different ways in our current construct, or we've gotten better at that, but it's still very manual, right? And having data in lots of different systems makes that a challenge. And I think if we can get to a point where we can show anything relatively easily to our clients, we can also, this isn't about reducing the number of people who work at BBR. It's about making their jobs more interesting, right? That's not the most interesting thing to be doing, is reorganizing and redoing something over
Data
and over.
cleanse.
If we can get that right and stored the right way, then we can even start potentially using AI as a way to do things more effectively and show things more effectively, and come to more interesting or different decisions that we might have taken a long time to get to in different areas. So it's very open-ended at this point. We're on the infrastructure side, developing the base layer to be able to lean into those areas, but we're excited about where it can potentially go.
The idea that we can, change sort of our mentality when it comes to AI is, how we're thinking about it across the firm. But there are things you can take in terms of steps today to make our jobs more efficient. And so we have some regulatory constraints to be able to use ChatGPT. We developed our own internal system, ChatBBR, which is probably the most used program at BBR at all ages, from right out of school to us at the table. That just simplifies things. It's a more effective search engine than what we've been using in the past.
Yeah.
So we're not waiting to figure out everything about AI before we use tools to help just make our jobs more enjoyable.
But it's inevitable, right? As Evan said, there's the low-hanging fruit, which is the efficiency. And I think the efficiency is key. It's exactly what Todd mentioned, which is we want to not reduce the number of people. We want the people we have doing higher quality work and adding more value. But then I think the evolution of AI and how we use AI is going to be helping us make better decisions and provide better advice.
Totally.
And so we're sort of in the early innings of efficiency, but have our eye on how are we going to do this to be better investors, better advisors.
Let's talk about that investing. Stephanie, how do you think about 10 years from now, how we'll be talking about impact investing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we've seen over our 25 years, clients continue to focus on how their assets are, forwarding their purpose. And for every family, that's different. Strategic philanthropy and the focus on strategic philanthropy has really been a focus in the last 10 years. 5 years ago, we hired someone to actually, deliver this. It's one of our key wealth practice management areas. And I think as the universe has evolved in the investment space, the ability for clients to make an impact not only through their philanthropy, grow assets and then put those assets to work in places outside your portfolio, we're also able to really construct a portfolio that reflects values and actually, leverages opportunities out there to improve the world. Now, for every client, that's very different, right? Like families care about different things. And so the key piece of that is really getting back to kind of listening and going through a process with clients of understanding what is it that they care the most about and how can we reflect that in the portfolio. That's just going to continue to
That grows
grow.
in importance for
I think so.
clients.
Yeah. Oh, I think because I think the opportunities will grow.
So $32 billion in assets under management. Let's say, I don't know, you guys are 10 years from now, 64 or whatever number you are at that point. How do you make sure that you are still staying personal? How do you still continue this culture of like, listening and bringing out the notebooks when you're a much bigger firm?
First, I want to compliment you on your math.
Thank you.
Really being able to do
I've
that.
got a calculator over here.
I helped him.
I think it's a lot of the things we've talked about. I actually think technology will enable us to be better listeners and actually spend more time on those skills to become better and better advisors for our clients. And focusing on the next generation, really leaning into how do I provide insight here instead of just information, which is what we do every day, but the ability to continue to focus on that. I think communities within communities is something I think a lot about at BBR. We spent a lot of time many years ago thinking about, setting up some teams within our advisory team. And it felt like a big transition back when we were doing it, to make sure that our employees and our talent felt that they had a team of people that knew them, knew what they were working on, understood what their day-to-day was like, and we're helping kind of guide them. And I think we're going to have to continue to focus on that. I mean, I think every day about how I walk into the office and how we are making BBR a smaller place, even though we're 190 people today. And I said, that's going to have to continue going forward.
And when we talk about succession, we're really excited about the people that will be leading the firm in 15 years, right? And we already know who some of those folks are. So that one is exciting. I think that we have a lot of confidence. This job is I think one of the more interesting jobs you can have, right? We meet with the smartest managers across any asset class in the world, all over the world, and travel to do it. On the client side, we meet with all sorts of interesting and sophisticated, smart families that have done really interesting things with their lives, both how they generate their wealth, but beyond that as well, right? How they think about charity, et cetera. And being involved in that, and and how different it is for every family. Ultimately, if you have an intellectually curious person, this is a great place to work.
I want to talk a little bit about your investment philosophy, how that plays out over the next few years. Where we are today certainly feels like there's a lot of surprises every day, a lot of shocks. How do you think about making sure that you are steady rocks through this? How do you work with families who are saying, I need to move quickly and I want to move on this and that? What's that process like over the next couple of years to try to keep people focused on the next generation?
I would say some of the things that have evolved is the idea of just you can take a 2 or 3 year view is more or less over. You've got to be more flexible than that. You need managers who know what they don't know and know that they need to be able to change their mind as facts on the ground, whatever they be, tax, tariff, geopolitics, change. You need to be able to change your mind if it impacts your investment. There are things like emerging markets where we're just not comfortable doing private equity in emerging markets today. Because if you ask us to take a 5-year view on how investable is China or India or Argentina or Brazil, anyone who has a 5-year view on that is overconfident in their view.
Yeah.
And then we've never been short-term market timers. We do a much, much better job now than we did 25 years ago of thinking about forward returns and leaning into things that are more likely to have more attractive returns. But most importantly, we've always done it, and the technology's gotten better and better in this area, is to think about risk. You've got upside scenarios you haven't thought about and downside scenarios you haven't thought about. What do those look like? How do you model those out? And how do you think about how your portfolio is going to perform regardless of what plays out? Not, I'm going to be so smart about what the next 3 months are going to look like.
I think one thing that's different about this environment is that, which is tricky, is that a client's outlook generally has some correlation with how they feel about what's going on in the world, right? And I think understanding where a client's coming from, knowing that ahead of time, can help advise. If they're worried about tariff policies and the world ending based on what's happening, they're more inclined to just want to sell everything and reduce risk. And as we know from doing this for a long time, that's probably not the right drastic move to take. Maybe taking a little bit of money off the table is prudent in certain areas that have done really well over a long term. But making big drastic swings is almost a way to ensure you never get where you want to go. So understanding a client's psychology and their beliefs and where they're coming from can really be informative. And we found, I think, that in this environment, that's as important as ever. And the opposite is also true. Somebody that thinks tariffs are the greatest thing that's ever happened and wants to go all in on equities, it's probably there are other paths that we could potentially go down here too, and maybe being a little bit more cautious about putting on that much risk is probably the right thing to do.
And context matters, right? I mean, our families have created a tremendous amount of wealth. And most of them have created that wealth by taking risks. But once the wealth has now been extracted from the way in which they made their wealth, their mindset changes. And we as their advisors can make two mistakes. One, the mistake is of sinking the boat, right? Risking too much of their wealth. Or the other is missing the boat. And if we have to make an error, we'd much rather make the error of missing the boat. And if you miss the boat, it doesn't mean that we're not taking advantage of every inefficiency, every opportunity, being on our front foot with great ideas. But it also means that, for Brett's example of some manager who walks in and says, there is one trade to make and that trade is Brazil, because you go long Brazil and I promise you in 5 years you will have unbelievable returns, that's a pass.
Yeah.
And our clients, and that's a pass because that's who we are, but that's what our clients want from us too.
A lot of what you're talking about is for very sophisticated people who have made their money and they're trying to make sure that their boat doesn't sink. And they are coming to you with ideas and you're listening, validating, and then kind of steering them through what you have seen and experienced over the last 25 years to help them guide them in the right path. How do you think about next generation, the kids, the kids of these clients? How do you make sure that they don't just inherit this wealth, and how do you make sure that when they are inheriting this wealth, they understand what they're getting, or just how do you help train the next generation?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's probably the number one most important thing across our client base that people talk about wanting to do. I think, we really do it in two ways. One is to customize, as we do, a solution for families. So often we're sitting down with the wealth generators or the parents, thinking through what's the right conversation and how do we do this over multiple years. It's a process of providing information, but the support around that and helping kids learn, because someday they're going to be responsible for shepherding this wealth.
Yeah.
And so doing that over stages so that they gain the skills over time is really important. The second way we do it is really in a way that's much more easy to access. Just the other day we had a Zoom conversation with young adults in their 20s around basic financial planning. How do I think about my paycheck and what I should be doing day to day? What should I be doing in terms of my 401k? What's a stock? What's a bond? Really basic things in a setting that's very easy for kids to access and doesn't feel like a big leap into, how do I become responsible for this wealth down the road?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much of the takeaway of this entire conversation around this generational investing for the future, and then investing in the generations of your clients, and then taking a very complex world, and you all handle the complexity, and for your clients, they just get to keep feeling like someone else understands this and is bringing us the important answers right when it matters, not overwhelming us with what's going on.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the wealth that our clients have is a utility for other things in life, and it's different for every family and for every future generation. But figuring out how to, make this wealth work for them is really, what makes us all tick and kind of what pulls it all together. What's the money for at the end of the day is a question we ask, every family.
Huh.
And interestingly, many prospective clients will say, I've never really thought
Yeah.
about
That's a great question.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
What is this
But
for?
It's shocking they haven't thought because they're
Right.
so in the middle of trying to make it
Yeah.
that they've never stopped to think, what's it for?
Right. You think about it, and you show up to a meeting, and you don't tell them how they should be invested, but you ask them first, what are you trying to achieve?
Right.
And we're not talking about risk and return.
Right.
It's what are you really trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Is it philanthropy? Is it generational wealth? Is it your lifestyle? There's no wrong answer.
Right.
And it's not one answer. And many people haven't thought about it. And that really helps us frame what we want to accomplish.
That's a great question. I love
It's
that.
quite a privilege
Mm-hmm.
to be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
have those conversations with
Yes.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's close it up with one sentence about what you want the world to know about BBR Partners as it turns 25. So we open this with what is BBR Partners. Let's talk about like how you would want, what you'd want people to know on this important anniversary.
I mean, our reputation is critically important to us. It's been important forever. And I think, or I know we're known for three things: rigor and working hard, empathy, like really listening to those clients, and being high integrity. I don't want that to change. Those are three things that I think define us. I'm proud of defining us.
We really have fun doing this. Like we like hanging out with each other, and we have a good time as a firm. And I think that kind of joy makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think another core tenet is continuous education, and I think we all always want to get better. I think individually, but collectively, we've continued to get. We are so much better than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and that's I think the exciting thing about 5, 10, 15 years going forward. Like, how much better can we be? A lot better, and how will it happen? That's going to be exciting to watch.
25 years, we know who we are and we know who we aren't. And having that singular purpose allows us to kind of get rid of all of the things that are extraneous. And so the whole firm after 25 years is focused on families. It's focused on being the best firm that we can be. And that's a nice thing. It's comforting to know that no matter what question you ask about us in the future, we know who we are.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I got to say, it has been a true pleasure for me to be able to sit here and talk to you about BBR. One of the things I love is that you all are saying exactly the same thing, but in very different ways. There is no space between your answers in how you see managing your business internally or externally, or what values you have or bring to the world. But all of you kind of take a different perspective on how you achieve all of that, or different parts of it you feel like you own or you're kind of specialize in. So it's really cool to see. Congratulations. Happy birthday. Let's do this again at 35 and then maybe at 50 also, if you're cool with that. And that's it. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.